All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Gloria. I'm part of the Get Coin Events team. I'm here with Hugo and Yaman from LUKSO. And today we'll be doing a Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them either in the chat or in the Q&A. But before we get started, I wanted to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, this session is being recorded. So if you do want to rewatch this session, you can go to our Get Coin Media page on YouTube, and there is a playlist that's LUKSO. And so you can watch all those sessions there. Second of all, please feel free to say hi in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, what you're building. It's a great way for us to get to know all of y'all, and a great way for y'all to get to know one of each other. Last but not least, when you do have questions, if you can drop the questions in the Q&A or the chat, I'll make sure that they both get answered and that, your question gets looked at. With that, we'll go ahead and start with the Q&A. And I know I have other questions here, so let me pull them up. Let me pull the first one up real quick. Okay. Sorry. Actually, this is not the first one. I'm going to root. Oh, it looks like it cut off. Hold on one moment. I don't know if this whole question came up, but let's see if I show it on stage.
I guess it's cut.
Yeah, it got cut a little bit. I can answer the question too. I see. Yeah. I have the whole question if it's easier to ask.
We have it as well. Yeah.
I might throw it in the chat and see if I can get the whole question there too. But the whole question was, I'm working on a social media feed bounty. I'm curious regarding what kind of solutions there are to make to use the Merkle tree in a universal profile data store, since it's suggested in the social media bounty description. Since the values are changeable, the Merkle root can be changed at any time.
I guess I will answer that. So for the, what was it? For the social media bounty description, it was suggested to use Merkle trees. So it's up to you. You can use Merkle trees. You can also use another things. But like for a universal profile, we have the storage. There's a standard function called setData. With this setData function, you can change any slot in the storage. So basically everything is changeable. But if you want, you can have custom universal profile. We are not forcing you to use our implementation. You can use a different implementation where you specify that specific data key can change, or you can store them in one key and have a specific logic where it's relevant to Merkle trees. It's really up to you. You can do anything. You can customize your universal profile. Also, if it's somehow relevant, you can use the key manager where you can restrict to only change some specific keys, not just change everything. You can do whatever you want. You can customize a universal profile to work in the way you want. I guess maybe this answer your question. Hugo, do you want to add something or?
Yeah, thanks, Yaman. Yeah, we have a lot of questions about, I would say, very specific use cases, like can I use zero knowledge proof and stuff. At the end, the way you just see it as a dictionary where you can quickly save data and read data and let other smart contract with that data. I think usually for us to be able to answer if we have something more specific, like it helps. Other than that, it should be like very flexible. That you should be able to just store the thing the way you want. And if you make your own smart contract, you can, as Yaman said, you can add your own custom logic. You can just save that in a different way. But there should be no issue. Like, I mean, the way you want to structure, like there are lots of things that you can put in the social media can be reference to a JSON. It can be a username. It can be, I don't know, likes, followers. So there are lots of things that can go on here. And at the end, I would say it's kind of up to you how you want to store it, but we provide an easy way to store information, and that is ESC725Y. So yeah, I hope it answers. I don't know if the person who asked the question is here, but yeah, I hope we answered your question. We can't hear you, Gloria. You are muted.
It's been one of those days. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the person is here just now, but we'll just move on to the next question. And I think this is just a general question, but it's, are other teams looking into infrastructure projects like block explorers and things of that nature?
Yeah, maybe I can quickly answer. So for Block Explorer, we've been working with Block Scoots, so we are very close with the team to connect directly to our nodes and stuff like that. It also involves things like Relayer. We had some questions about Relayer specific things from a few teams, so all the teams are working on that. Also stuff related to staking. So yeah, there are other teams looking at this. Block Explorer specifically, I don't know. The Block Explorer we use is the one from Blockscode, and we are in close contact with them. But yeah, if you want to look at this, that's cool. And I personally believe that also for the whole blockchain industry, everything related to infrastructure will grow a lot. It's already growing a lot, so I think it will grow on a lot of direction. And yeah, I think with the Relayer, there are lots of cool things to do. Relayer, staking, Block Explorer, oracles, security. Yeah, lots of things are going. So yeah, we didn't review yet all the projects because not all of them are were submitted. There's still some time, but maybe by the end of the hackathon, you will also have an answer to your question. So yeah, I see Fabian just joined. Cool.
Yes. Hi, Fabian.
Hi.
Hello. I'm also totally stretched. Hugo, your video is also stretched.
Yeah, I look very, very like this. That's fine.
Okay, so let me go on to the next question that we have.
I think maybe Fabian, do you have some you want to add some stuff on infrastructure? I think it's a nice topic. The question was are there people building infrastructure stuff in the infrastructure track? So yeah.
If people are building in the infrastructure track,
yeah, or just yeah, the project related to infrastructure. So Block Explorer and stuff like that. So I explained mainly about Relayer, but I don't know if you wanted to.
So the transaction relayer is kind of important. We want to have a transaction relayer competitive economy. Obviously, running node infrastructure itself, like Alchemy and Infura, that's useful. I don't know exactly what are the different projects that are more off topic that we have not specifically requested, because we have the blue sky topic as well. There might be projects also in that direction, but I'm not aware of current other infrastructure projects right now. I haven't looked into it.
All right. This is from Karen or Karan that's here too. And they had what's the general roadmap for the extension, specifically regarding importing UPs and the ability to generate additional key controllers from extensions that can be used by different services?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabian, you want to go? Yeah, go
ahead. So the roadmap for the extension is there's quite a few pieces here. But maybe go first with the controllers. You don't need to create keys in the extension. The idea, if you want another service to use a key, that other service is creating the key. If you want this key to be added to the UP extension or to your universal profile, all you need to do is you call set data, and you set 3 keys. One is the key with the permissions, like the address of the key in the array. One is the key and its permission that you are requesting as an application. And you could even restrict this key to certain smart contract addresses. And then you just send a transaction that pops up. Transaction asks you to confirm to add this key with certain permissions to your profile. In the future, we will have a custom transaction window that looks then user-friendly, where you can basically see, okay, there's a key being added. These are the different permissions that's requesting. Right now, it would show you a set data, a low-level transaction confirmation, but that would basically be allowed to talk through the UP. And then on the as service, because you have a key, you are in charge of making the transactions, signing them in the right format, and sending them off to the blockchain. In terms of other specifically things, so currently we are working on exporting and importing a universal profile between different UP controller apps. So we have a mobile app that we're building that's not released yet, and we have the extension that is in the developer preview, and basically importing from that app to another or any other third-party app that would exist in the future. And kind of like importing also a UP, right? That's kind of important. That's something we're working on that will be released in the coming weeks. There is obviously custom transaction windows that we want to have, right, for token transfers, for NFT transfers, for confirming profile updates, for setting different permissions or different keys. We want to have custom transaction windows that look a bit nicer than the low-level ones that you currently have. There's also a lot of requests from the community around improving the sign window where you sign messages. Right now, that's kind of bare bone looking. We want to make that better looking. There's also an idea about a proper Web3 authentication. So just to explain, if you are currently authenticating with MetaMask or with the UP extension, what you do is people call ETH request accounts, right? And that's not really like, one second, I need to close that window here. That's not really an authentication, because the app says, hey, can you please give me the address of your UP, right? Or MetaMask of whatever key you have. And then the extension just returns an address. In the ideal scenario that I'm envisioning for the future, you actually sign a message. So you prove that you actually control the UP. But on the other hand, the app itself should also have a UP and sign with its key of its UP, proving that it is a certain app. Because if you have a two-way authentication, so both parties kind of sign with their keys sitting in their UPs, that they control the different sides, you have a proper login where then you can even use that as like logging into a backend system where you maybe have access to that only the user should have access to, and so on. So when you sign this, when you have a two-way sign, that will be a proper login. That can be built, but it still needs some specification and more ideation how to make this, generically usable for the foreseeable future. And that's what makes it a bit more complicated. In the simple way right now, you could just request to sign a message, right? It looks a bit ugly, the window, because it's all like in the early design phase, but you can already kind of request the UP extension to sign with one of the sign keys, which is mostly the key that the UP extension has. And then hey, this message was signed by the UP, therefore I can log in the user, for example. There's also the Ethereum login or Ethereum sign-in way. That's also something that we could integrate into UP. It's obviously based on pure keys being accounts, so we have to, change it a bit up. But and then obviously it's about improving the permission settings. So how you create permissions, supporting multiple networks, adding custom relayers is something that's coming very soon as well. Improving in general the usability settings, all the things you can do to the UP extension. So there's a lot of smaller tasks that also need to be done in order to make that like long-term usable. Maybe there's some other things that you also have in mind, Hugo, that I'm forgetting now.
Yeah, so as Fabian explained, so we've been busy over the last week to make the authentication between two devices, so the extension and the mobile app, which was like not so easy because we need to do requests in like two ways to add the key. So we need to ask one device to add the key for the new device and so on. So this thing was pending for some days now. We should release today or tomorrow, like by the end of the week. So we test everything so it works well. The current version of the extension that you can download is a bit behind. We made a lot of change since then, so we are doing a final like QA round so we can release that. And this week we are focusing so on a like easy way that like you as a developer, you have a key, you just want to add the key into the system so you can debug and stuff. So we already have one RPC call that you can use. It's a UP import. We will document that over the next day. We will add that page on our documentation so you can know how it works. And we will add the UI part so you can just do it by yourself without using an RPC call. So yeah, we are aware of having those keys and you need to install again and you lose your access and stuff. So it's a high priority at the moment. Hopefully you can see change from us for like in the next 2 days and at the end of the current sprint. So by mid next week. So that's our
But also,
big task.
let's make clear that this is the very early MVP version that might be still buggy and is a full-on UX redesign that we will do on that import flow. So right now it's the ugly version, right? It's functional but ugly. So that will actually look better and be more proper done, in the coming weeks. It's just about like, testing the flow and making it work right now. So that's the version that we will release early.
Yeah, true.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think we're good. I know.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. Hopefully it was pretty in depth. Let me see. The next question that we have is, this has only part of it, so I'll read it completely. So hold on one second. Okay. And this question says like, we have a working chain link node, which we are testing with LUKSO features like the transaction relay. If we can get an external adapter running with the chain link node, we will see if we can put tweets on a chain for social recovery Twitter usernames. If not, we will think of something basic to do with the current node. Will there be a live demo for the relay transfer with Lux smart contract interaction with data parameters? We are also wondering how the private key is used with the key manager for a new user for easy access without us running a backend server for front-end hosting. For reference, part of our project will be a faucet token, which will use the transaction relay. I got the relay working today with a basic transfer. If we have trouble with the relay front-end integration, we might do the relay demo locally for the faucet once we get the faucet contract data loaded into the relay. And then it says update the faucet relay worked, and then they have a transaction hash. And then it says any feedback about making the UI UX better for the relay in the front end would be great.
Okay, so where are the links to the project? That would be great. I mean, that sounds.
Yeah, let me give you the link to the project. I'll put it in the chat.
My head around this specifically. I don't know specifically how a chain link nodes work, and I don't know how this is like related to a faucet. So I'm confused. Maybe there's a misunderstanding here of what a relay service does. A transaction relay service is the one who actually holds the keys. And all it does, it basically forwards the transaction to the network that has been signed in a certain way so that actually it executes through a user's UP. But it's obviously signed by the users, a controller key. All right. And that is obviously the key that's sitting in the browser extension. Or if you want to test it, you can also just generate a key in a D app and control a certain UP. But I don't exactly understand fully the the flow here. So it would be good to look at this project. Maybe it does make sense for us to, we actually already spoke about that in the workshops. Maybe it makes sense to actually have more a specific session about the transaction relay service and how that works and how you would make that work. There's actually guides in our docs that show how you sign a transaction relay message. And your server simply has to be able to get that message and then send it off to a key manager of a certain universal profile through the execute relay call function. That should just work. I do not know, or I don't understand how this is all relating to tweets and recovering Twitter names. That's for me a mind bend. So I'm a bit confused with the question.
Yeah, I don't
maybe
have
there's like a
a
few different pieces.
Yeah, for
I don't have a
the
link to the actual project.
yeah, I sent
Go ahead.
some like 2 links to how to prepare the transactions and how to the one that Fabian you were mentioning. Yeah, and other than that,
Do we have in the LUKSO D app? Yeah, but this is not this is using the browser extension, but there's also okay. There's another one. But where did you post this now? It's in the question. Okay, exactly. So the thing is, the document in our documentation page is talking to the current test relay we have. So for the bounty, actually, we're proposing a new standardized API. That's not the standardized API. That's kind of the pre-version of the API. I also updated the docs to make that very clear at the top. But it's not that different, right? It's just the way of how the post message looks like. It looks a bit different, but it's literally the same thing. But that's kind of explains how you sign it. It's not that complicated on the end to sign it. Your backend just needs to be able to take that and then just send it off to the network. And it has to be signed by obviously a key that controls the UP.
Okay, I'm going to go to another question from a team that's here in the session. So this one is from Victor. And it says, my team are working on using vaults. We created vaults for a specific UP. We're expected that this vault will appear on the vaults list on UP, but it's not happened. And the vaults guides are only available from 2 days ago. Is it possible to add more detailed guides?
So I guess I'm gonna answer this. So yeah, 2 days ago we added the vaults on how to create a vault and how to set a universal receiver delegate. Basically, if you deploy your universal profile with the LSP factory, it should come with a default universal receiver delegate. And whenever you deploy a vault with the owner as your universal profile, it should register the address of the vault inside the storage. So I already explained this on the internal dev channel on Discord, but yeah, I will repeat it. So if you use the default implementation of the universal receiver delegate and you deploy a vault with the universal profile as the owner, or you have an existing vault and you transfer ownership to the universal profile, it should be registered under the LSP 10 volts data key, and you can retrieve it using ERC725JS. We will add more guides. We can't we don't have a specific deadline on when we're gonna add these guides, but it's on our list.
But have we already updated the LSP factory to contain the new universal receiver delegate? That would be the question, actually.
It should work with the old one. So the old universal receiver delegate should work, since we're deploying the universal profile and the universal receiver delegate from the LSP factory. They are on the same version, so it should work.
Yeah, and also for you can always write these data keys also manually, right? You can just simply call set data, write these data keys yourself, right? So if the data keys are not in there because the universal receiver delegate didn't do it, you can always write it manually, right? You look at LSP 10, that's the two things the two keys you need to write. If you use ES725JS, encode data, I think you can literally just paste in, this is the key this is the values, and he spits you out all the keys you need to just set on the UP, and that's it. And then you have it there, and you can read it out using ES75JS as well. You just need to feed it with the right schema, and the encoding and then also later decoding should be fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I also have a question on the vault list on UP. So because sometimes there is confusions because people, they use either the extension or the universalprofile.cloud website to see a UP. But for instance, the vaults are not at the moment. We didn't make any UI changes so you can see that. So do not think that because you set the key but you don't see that on universalprofile.cloud, the key is not here. Those are stuff we are working on, make this thing visible for you. The most important thing is like, is the key here? Are the keys here? So there is again the array key, the vault key, and so on. And for that, if the key is here, that's all you need. And you can use ERC75 inspect to check if those keys are here. Maybe it's also a good idea how we can add some debug tools on this system so you can check this. But yeah, I think as long as the key is here, it should be good. So yeah, just
here
and
on the smart contract. Yeah, but maybe to add to this, universalprofile.cloud website is a bit behind. It's still mainly for the L14 network. It's not like a full redone. Also, we are also the reason why we are asking for the bounty to create a wallet and vault management is because obviously we don't have that on our website yet. So in the future, there will also be a wallet at universalprofile.cloud that will also show vaults and so on. But don't expect everything that you set in the UP just to magically appear on the universalprofile.cloud website. We would have to add these things manually as well, and it's a bit behind.
Okay, so the next question.
Sorry. I just saw, if you want to have specific guides, you can always open an issue on our docs website. You can open an issue and say, hey, I'm missing this and that. We want a lot of feedback and we love to hear like we want this and that. But to be honest, we kind of lose track because we get input from everywhere. And using an issue in the GitHub is a good way. We can answer, we can say, hey, look, that's the state. So if you have something in mind, open an issue. Worst case scenario, we close it and say no. But we should just have it here, and or it stays open for too long. But at least it's on our radar. So feel free to send some issues for the docs.
Yeah,
that's why it's
link.
here.
I put the issue tracker.
Cool.
So this is
the
generic
issue tracker.
Yeah, that's a generic issue tracker for like generic issues. There's also the docs page repository. You could also create an issue there, for example, specifically if you feel that it's missing in the docs. But the issue tracker is something like watching as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
This is from Nathan, and it's a two-part question. It's just basically saying that I created a LSP8 contract and minted 2 tokens to it through the browser extension using the examples. And then when I tried to find the contract on the L8 block explorer, I could not find the contract. And it says I have the address for the token I created, but I cannot find the contract code or the read-write functions. Any suggestions on how to find the smart contract addresses?
So it might be that we have not verified these contracts in the Block Explorer L16.
Actually, we verified the LSP8 contracts, but if you deploy a custom one, I'm not sure like what the LSPD app used, but we verified LSP8 mintable contract that are
the LSPD app uses LSP Factory, but there might be different versions. Maybe it's a previous version of LSP8 that we haven't verified yet on L16. If you type in the address, and if the address shows up and shows code, right, then actually it's a deployed smart contract. If it doesn't show the read and the write function, it's because it's not verified. So
one thing is that's also an issue we have ourselves, is that sometimes we want to go on the read-write part of the Block Explorer, so it's easy to query and fetch stuff. But sometimes because we did a lot of versions lately, it's just not verified. And for checking stuff, especially set data, like everything related to ERC75Y and X, you can check in ERC75 inspect, just put the address, and it will tell you if it's compatible. And if it is, then you can kind of read, but just the get data stuff. So it's a way that we also use to, the contract is not verified. Okay, then we can just go here. We don't have to create our own script to read this thing. Oh, thank you, Nathan. I see you send a contract address. Let me check. Is it on L16? I will quickly check.
Yeah, you said yes.
It says address. Yeah, it says address details and not contract details. So, and that's contract address. Okay, I don't know.
The question is whether you got the address from. Is then the question.
Yeah.
Is this the address of the deployed token contract? Because that's actually not a deployed smart contract. And if you could mint something, then this definitely would be a smart contract on L16. If you deployed this through the browser extension, a previous version of the browser extension was not using L16. So let me check if you just by accident.
Yeah, it's not. It's not an.
No, it's also not an L14. So maybe it's the wrong address, or a different. Not maybe it's where you minted it to, rather than the actual.
Like this address contain logs, but I'm not sure that where the code section is. But if you go to the logs, it's an issue we always seems to have with Block Scout. Maybe it's something from the Block Scout. We have a task for it. We need to double check.
It definitely fired logs, which makes no sense if there's no code. But that seems to be that the code is like missing. That's funky. I mean, obviously, it is definitely, if you can interact with the smart contract, it's definitely on chain. Block Explorer is Block Scout is just an interface to view the blockchain, and it's also not like perfect. That might be the reason why this. It doesn't show any transaction or internal transaction, but it does show logs. Strange.
Maybe, Nathan, we can follow this conversation on our Discord in the hacker discussion. We will find it. We are all like wondering why.
It's a bug it looks like it's a bug in Block Scout, actually. That
yeah, I see it's indexing tokens.
Yeah, that's always the kind of.
Yeah, it's the same like, for the universal profile. Sometimes you have a universal profile like this, so
that's something we need to check with the Block Scout team.
Yeah, exactly.
They are maintaining Explorer.
If I put this address in ERC725 inspect, I get that it's ERC725Y compatible. So there is something. So I guess there is a delegate. There's some stuff. No.
Let's that question. Obviously, Block Scout problem, right? And
I think it's because if you go here, Nathan, you will see that it's pinging our node and reading the value, and okay, you see most of the values here are nil, but yeah, there is something. So if it was not deployed, we won't see that it's ERC725Y compatible. So I guess it's indeed just a Block Scout UI issue. Oh. Okay, I hope we answered you, Nathan. I don't know what we can do about that. I don't know if we can, because that's a bit annoying. So maybe we should reach out to them. I will write a to-do here.
I mean, I already wrote in the collaborator channel to Igor now.
Okay.
Igor is the person who's running Block Scout, the Block Scout team. So let's see what he comes back with.
Cool. Thanks, Nathan, for the question.
Let's see. Okay, here is another question. Oh my goodness. Got lots of questions. We'll do this one.
Yeah.
And this is from Nikki. And it was, what was the difference between received asset and owned assets in LSP 5? Let me know. They're always the same list. In other words, if I send away a token I had received, is it removed from both lists?
Yep. Do you want to answer, Fabian, or I should take
I don't
it?
know where the owned asset word comes from, because it's just received asset LSP5. Is there anywhere owned asset in there? No.
From the old maybe old universal profiles, how we fetch assets, yeah. But yeah, for the LSP5 received assets is just when you receive an asset, we have an implementation for the universal receiver delegate that automatically write the address of these assets inside your storage. And it's logical when you transfer these tokens away from your universal profile and you don't have any balance anymore, it's logical to remove them from your storage. You don't want to have a website that fetch all the received assets from your storage and it shows some tokens that were historically owned by you. So it makes sense to remove them on a balance equal to 0. And if you want to know the historical tokens that you own before, you can listen to the universal receiver event. Maybe it's not always reliable, but this is a way to do it, to know the historical owned assets. But yeah, the received assets are just showing the tokens that you own in this specific moment.
So it's maybe just to explain the difference. I mean, I don't know where own assets is coming from. It's not any of the keys in LSP5, but a received asset means it's an asset that was sent to you, right? Either minted to you or it was sent to you. And it means it's an asset that you own. And it creates this kind of decentralized portfolio. Also, if you're building a website, right? I mean, the universal receiver delegate that currently like writes this automatically is just one way of doing it. But there can obviously be, many different universal receiver delegates in the future that do all kinds of different things. So if you would build an interface and you want to list assets that someone owns, you can read that list, but you should always check the balance. And if the balance is 0, you obviously shouldn't display that asset, because there could still be assets written into your profile that you don't own anymore, right? It just says, hey, I own or have owned or have a balance in one, or had a balance in one of these smart contracts, smart contracts. Then the interface would have to check obviously on the contract, do you have a balance, what kind of type of asset it is, how do you read it out, and all of the other things. Do not trust the keys in the universal profile. They are obviously not like perfectly 100% accurate, because a user could write whatever he wants in there, or he could have a different type of universal receiver delegate that writes different things in there, right? So it's just more of a hint of creating a decentralized portfolio. It's not a perfect perfect system, right? It's a voluntary entry, let's say. The other option is, if you don't write that in there, you have to go to an external API to listen to events, right?
Awesome.
But I don't know what the list is really.
All right, so I'm going to go on to the next question. Hopefully that's okay. The next question that we had was regarding the social media bounty. The messages should be signed, but the UP can't sign. A controller EOA could sign for a UP, but what if the EOA loses permission? Will then never be able to verify that this signature belongs to the UP?
I mean, first off, you can always technically, based on logs, right, which keys were added, verify if something in the past was existing. Obviously, you can know, was this key present, or was this a key with a certain signed permission, because you can always look at what data was set. There will be in the future also other systems that will archive, different kind of actions that UPs did. So because it wasn't the blockchain once, it's kind of there. But yeah, I mean, you can like remove a signing key, right? And also that's not a bug necessarily, that's a feature, right? For example, if I sign a set of messages, maybe I want to say that I don't agree with them anymore, and I remove the signing key just to basically say, hey, I claim, that I don't find this valid anymore or whatever, right? You could still, through the blockchain history and blocks, figure out that he had signed it once. But yeah. And also the sign permissions, same also with the they are more, let's say, cosmetic permissions, because the UP itself obviously cannot sign. What you can have is the universal profile, or LSP0, has a verify signature, or is
I'm
called
gonna
signature.
explain this. Yeah, you can go ahead, and I will explain after. I have some figures to explain the signing of a universal profile.
Yeah, so basically you can sign with a key, and the isValid signature is a function that allows you to just send a signature, and then the UP will either check was it signed by the current owner, if the owner is a key. If the owner is a key manager, he will forward that request to the key manager and ask isValid signature on the key manager, and that will then check, hey, it was signed by one of the sign keys, and then gives you basically true back a massive value in a specific value. So you can verify a signature on a UP. Obviously, a smart contract cannot sign, therefore it has to be signed by one of the keys. But yes, it can also be a key that was, is not present anymore. And the debate is this a feature or a bug? I mean, I would say it's both, depends on your use case. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you want to say something more to that,
Yeah,
or?
I will just share my screen real quick, just to. I guess you said it, but I'll just make a check here. You can see my screen, right?
Hmm?
So normally, if we wanna check signature, we take the signature and the data that has been signed, and we recover the signer using ECDSA, and it should recover the proper signer. But since a smart contract can sign, there's a standard called ERC 1271, and it's for standard signature validation for contracts. And basically, it's provide a function called isValid signature, and it will either return the magic value, which is like true, and the failure value is like false. So when you want to check a signature, you will just call the isValid signature on the profile with the signature and the data that has been signed. And now we implement this function, and it has specific logic. So it's up to you to code the logic inside this function. So in our case, we say that, okay, if the owner is a normal external owned account, we check the signature and the data using the ECDSA. So it's the same here. We just check the signature and the data. But if it's a smart contract, now we need to check if this smart contract support ERC 1271. If it doesn't support, we return the failure value, which is false, like false. And if it supports, we call the isValid signature on this specific smart contract, and it's up to this specific smart contract to implement a logic like it should have. And in our case, sometimes the universal profile is owned by a key manager. So since it's a smart contract, we call the isValid signature on the key manager contract, and we have a custom logic. And this custom logic is when we recover the signer from the signature and the data, if the signer has the sign permission, then it's a valid signature. If the signer don't have a sign permission, then it's not a valid signature. So I just wanted to clarify this. Maybe it's something we can add to the docs. It's there, but maybe we can add a clarification about it. Yeah, I guess I'll stop sharing.
So basically, in short, if you have a key added with the permission sign and you call isValid signature on your UP address, you will know if it's true or false. Right? That's basically it.
There's another question that that I have here, and it's just around best use of using metadata versus internal data structures. So I didn't know if there's any like tips or suggestions around that.
Metadata, I mean, what's the difference? Your metadata, you mean an external JSON file, and internal data, you mean a smart contract readable data, or what exactly is the difference between the two?
Maybe I'm not sure if this is the question. When we should store variables inside the ERC725Y storage, and when you should use the Solidity native types like uint and bytes 32. So it's up to you. Like if you're coding a smart contract, if you wanna have the ability to add information to this contract across time, then you can use then you can support the ERC725Y storage standard. But if you want to just your smart contract to have some fixed variables that you don't want to add more across time, then you will just use the native types from Solidity. I'm not sure if this is the question, but it's good to clarify.
And maybe also to like hint a little bit very shortly that when Yamin is explaining something, he's obviously explaining the way of how you can work with these smart contracts, right? Because you can code anything and you can customize anything, right? So he's like talking from the perspective of the smart contracts. When it's specifically about the perspective of our standards and how we have built them and how they internally work, there's obviously a very specific way, like for example, most of the metadata you want to add to a token, you will add in, the ERC725Y way. So you just set data there. If you make your own custom smart contract, customized version of a token, then obviously you can add whatever variables you want as well. But then they are not so changeable anymore, right?
I see in the chat that Vicente, I'm not sure how to say, sorry, say it exactly. So I think Yamin was this
Vincent,
difference between Vicente. Oh. That responds to the question. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, let me go back to some more questions. Hold on, you have quite a few, so I just want to make sure. Here is another good one. It says, how does a new user with an EOA use the relay if they're not a key manager owner? I can use the relay locally with a private key hidden as an environmental variable for the key manager owner. So how is it done in the front end?
I mean, these kind of questions show me that we have something not well explained. I think, or maybe the whole concept of like a key of the relay or service is not really clear.
Actually, this question goes on, so I can keep reading it and see if it clarifies itself too. It says, I'm guessing that the connected EOA owner has to execute the relay on the behalf for the user when loaded through MetaMask in the front end. For context, the Chainlink faucet idea is to have a user pay no gas to receive link tokens. And then it says the user can then do Chainlink node request with their link tokens for an off-chain data to be input on-chain.
Well, I got this is like the Chainlink party again. Very confusing to me. I don't exactly know how Chainlink's internal model and works with how executing things, so it's really hard for us to. I mean, maybe I try to replay this a bit again. A transaction relay service is a service. It's an API that holds keys, any keys that can do a transaction to a network, and that when the right signed message comes in, just talks to the respective key managers and calls the execute relay function on those key managers. So it's just sending transactions to the network. Obviously, the signature, right, that you send to this API endpoint needs to be signed by one of the controlling keys that's allowed within this key manager, right? Because obviously, otherwise you could just like execute anybody's profiles. So what the key manager smart contract does when you call execute relay call, it checks, was this message signed by one of the keys that has a permission in this UP? And only if it has a permission, then it will execute through the UP whatever the user wanted to do, right? Any external smart contract, calling a transfer function or a token, for example. The transaction relay service doesn't need to have any permissions anywhere, because anyone can call the execute relay call function as long as the signed message is by one of the controlling keys. So what you do as a key manager, obviously, and that's what the browser extension does, is The browser extension, for example, holds a key that has power in the key manager of the UP, or has permissions, and it's basically just signs the messages in a certain format, sends them off to our current like internal transaction relay service, and this one just sends it to the key manager of this UP, and then the key manager decides either to let it in or not. If you, for example, want to test this right now in a D app, you would generate a key in the D app, deploy a UP that this key has some power in it, and then you just sign these messages in the right format and send them off to the, I guess, your Chainlink node in this case, and then the Chainlink node would like forward that to make the transaction to the network. How this works with Chainlink tokens and so on, I don't know. I don't know how people would pay for that. I don't know either. The model that we see for transaction relay service is we want to get new people using blockchain. Most people that come new to blockchain do not have tokens, right? They don't have tokens, they don't have Ether. So what you want to do is you want to give them this for free, right? You want to create a universal profile for them for free. You want to give the initial transactions for free. Why? Because that's the new users that might later subscribe to your service and pay you money. So there's a freemium model, same with the internet, right? Get the first month for free, later pay a subscription fee. And that's how most software as a service business model work, right? They get something for free and later they pay. So as a transaction relay service, you take the risk of that the user maybe just using you for a month or whatever, right? And then on the end, just jumps off. That's kind of the risk you take. If you want some kind of model where they already pay you in tokens, then maybe that's the wrong user, because that user probably already has an account, knows how to use blockchain, and got these tokens from somewhere. So that's not necessarily the right user for a relay service. Because if you have Lux, for example, or Lux test Lux, or in the future Lux of the LUKSO network, you can just fund your own controller keys and don't need a relay service anymore, because you could just make your own transaction from paying from your key, right, that you have funded. So I'm not exactly sure how that works with Chainlink specifically, and how the business model would be around using link tokens or whatever. Maybe there's a way to do this, maybe hiding the link tokens. If the user pays, let's say using PayPal, your service in the background could like purchase link tokens to then pay your Chainlink node. I don't know, could be a way, but I do not understand the business model of the Chainlink nodes enough to really understand how this would be done smart, but could potentially be done.
Also, something I was reading the question, and I don't know, because it says I can use the private key that is in an environment variable, and for the front end, just talking about keys, usually on the front end you use the extension to sign. So I say, how is this done in the front end?
Maybe to add this, if you want to just test, you would generate a key in your D app. If you actually use the extension, we are currently building a feature that allows you to add a custom transaction relay service. So if you would build this API based on the standardized API, and we release the feature to add a custom relay service, all you do is say, this is the API endpoint, this is the name of the relay service, this is the website, and then all the signing will happen magically within the browser extension. It will sign it the right way and send it off to your relayer's API. And then your relayer's API, just need to make sure that it forwards it to the blockchain properly. So we don't want that people use the sign function to now sign relay transaction or whatever. That's just you could do that, but that's just weird, in my opinion. So that's why if you want to test, just generate a key in your D app. You can, create your transactions, sign them locally, I think.
Okay.
I hope that kind of answers it.
I don't know. I'm learning a lot. So I think these best practices are definitely helpful. Hopefully they're helpful to everyone else who's building. Okay. Okay, let's see. Let me read the rest of this question, because this is one of the chunky ones. And it says, My team and myself have huge integrations relating to social media feed technical requirements. To start, one, each post is stored as a JSON URL entry in the key value store. Why do we still need to keep a message route that still can be edited? And then the second question is, the message should be signed, but a UP can't sign information, right? A controller EOA could sign for a UP, but what if this EOA loses permissions? Will then never be able to verify EOA intended had legitimacy for signing. These messages should be signed by a UP, but a UP can't sign information, correct? I feel like this is
Obviously, that's correct. It's very much related to the other question we had. So,
okay.
yes, if you would remove a signing key, right, from your UP, then obviously you can't instantly verify anymore was a message signed. I think this, and this is all, not everything is perfectly figured out, what would be the right way of doing that. So number one, obviously, it's still retrievable from the past through logs, APIs that will exist to archive this information. So there's different ways of how you can retrieve was a key ever present and had the signing rights. Second, if this message is in your UP and linked from your UP, there's a high chance that you also wrote the message. But sure, if it's the smartest to make a single per message, if the message root is you're not of your UP, make
I can't
10,000
hear well.
Uh,
Fabian, you're breaking.
Fabian, you're lagging.
Oh, we
Okay,
lost the
is
video.
it better now? No, I
Yes.
turned it off. Can you hear me better
Yes,
now?
better. Yes.
Okay. All right, then maybe have you heard everything, or do I have to repeat myself? Okay, so let me do it again.
Not
I mean,
much.
number one. Okay, number one. Could you please put the question back so I can follow that question? All right. So the question. So number one is, yeah, if you remove the signing key, you could still kind of verify that it was wrote by you because it's in your UP, right? You couldn't add it to your UP if it wouldn't be, confirmed by you, number one. Number two, there will be services and archive services that in the future allow you to know what signing keys you had in the past, even if you remove it. So it's not the perfect solution right now because obviously people could remove the signing key. But again, that could also be meaning that you now disagree with those messages, right? You say, yes, I signed it, but I removed it to kind of like give a signal that I disagree or whatever, right? So that's more like a social question also, because it's obviously in the hand of the user that you could literally say, hey, that's not my signing key anymore, or maybe I lost the device, so that's why I removed it. There's still other ways to retrieve this, in the future API services, reading logs and other things. Then the question towards storing a single message in a key value as a JSON URL. The reason why we chose message routes is, and I hope you guys can hear me. Can you hear me still? Yeah. The reason why we chose the message route is because you're not cluttering the state. So imagine you have 10,000 messages and every message will have a single entry in your universal profile. You're just filling up your state massively, and you like fill up also, you increase the state of like the whole blockchain a lot. So should there be something like state rental fees in the future? That's not the right way you want to do it. You want to keep it kind of like low, and that's why a message route would be better rather than keeping it in some kind of a hash structure, or maybe a message route that's linking to a single JSON file that has then all the sub messages would be a bit more efficient. Writing it as a single key value entry for a single message is a way to do it, probably not the most efficient way, but it's a simple way, right? So I guess if you really want to build this out as a fully functional system, that probably would not be the smartest way of doing it. Also, it's higher gas cost because you're always creating a new storage slot. It's way higher than replacing an existing storage slot. So these are the kind of concerns that you have to have when you're like deciding of how you architect your system. I hope that was understood.
Yeah. I think it was. Hopefully it was. Okay. Honestly, I think that answers the majority of the questions. Let me see if there's a couple more. First, Marcus also said he understood now. Thank you. So he appreciates that. Here's another one from Nathan. And then, are there any examples on how to use a .json file that contains the data from an NFT minted to an LSP8 contract? Usually this would be found on an IPFS server. Does LUKSO use something else for data storage in a contract deployed through a browser extension?
Maybe I can go quick. So where you store the data is up to you, or you can use Google Cloud or IPFS or anything else. We don't like force anything. We just like when we use IPFS, we have like IPFS : / so most of the apps can understand that and map to any gateway they use. For like fetching it, I'm thinking, I don't know if that replied to answer your questions, but we within ERC-725GS, there's a method called fetch data. And what it does is that if it detects that one key is a JSON URL, it will also download that JSON, check the keys, like check the hash. And if the hash of the thing, the file that was downloaded match the one that's written on the blockchain, it will show it back to you. So you will get the whole thing quite easily. So that's on our own tools. That's how we do. We use fetch data in ERC-725GS. And yeah, do use use something else? Yeah,
I mean,
and the browser extension. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can answer this one. So if you deploy a smart contract through the browser extension, whatever you write into your contract is up to you. Like, we are not uploading files for you. When your question is about a UP that's being deployed in the browser extension, yes, we currently store it as an IPFS. The idea for the future is that we give people a choice between IPFS and a centralized file storage, and then people can basically say, I want to have it stored with you, or I want to store it in IPFS. Or maybe there's 3 other storage ways that people can choose. Maybe they can even store it on their own local Google Drive, for example. That's specifically talking about the profile data. If you deploy an NFT through the browser extension, like, we do not determine where you store your files. If you're talking about the LSP factory uses IPFS, yes. Currently, the LSP factory, if you deploy a digital asset, LSP 8 and 7, it will upload the files on IPFS, yeah. So that's...
Cool. Let's see. I don't see any other questions. So I'll go ahead and let you all know it's last call. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat in the Q&A. If not, I think that we answered the majority of the questions that were asked.
Maybe I can add to this. So we are pretty much in the early days, in all the tooling and the tooling around the standards. So not everything is perfect, not everything is already there and perfectly explained. It's because we literally reinvented the way of how you interact with blockchain, right? This is quite a daunting task to do, right? And we need to build these different pieces piece by piece, and at the same time, make them, as generic as possible so that they work for all of your use cases. And there's also a room for thousands of standards on top of just profiles and start on top of just the metadata of these new NFTs. There's just so much room for standardization, and therefore obviously not every single potential use case is already defined into the detail. And it's also up to the community to come up with examples. I mean, for example, this, if you link messages from your profile, you make some kind of Twitter feed, right? Do you write that in per message in a key value store, or do you write it in a message route, or however you link that? There's thousands of ways how you could do that. Which one is the right one? There are different considerations you have to make, and we haven't fully defined the perfect way of doing that. That's exactly why it's a hackathon. There's many ways of doing it, and I hope you guys come up with the smart solutions. So you're also here helping building this, in the early days from the ground up. We're literally just like we have laid the foundation, I think, well enough that a lot of things can happen. But the rest is up to the community to also like move this forward and really grow it.
I think the best thing about being part of a community like this really early on too is that you can have so much influence of as
Yeah.
far as like the direction that it goes into, or feedback and things like that. So if this is something that you're passionate about, like please be involved, because from my understanding, Luxo has been really great to work with and have been a great team. I'm very open to any type of feedback or any type of ideas. So if you see something or if there's something that you want to see, like just bring it up to the team.
Yeah, and also, like this, also, we have the LSP, the LUKSO Standards proposals, right? I mean, right now we bring most of the proposals. In the future, you guys will bring the proposals. But also make sure, that your proposals can live up to what other people also would like to use, because, standards will only be adopted once they make sense, right? Not because somebody said something first. It's not about the first one, it's about the right one. And there's now plenty of opportunities, to really redefine the whole user experience. We have now the basic tools to make a proper user experience on Web3. And that gives you the power of Web3 with the ease of use of Web2 and better. And have a single unified account system that you use across different applications rather than always creating new accounts. So it's going a complete game changer. But we have still a lot of things to build, not we as an internal team, but the whole community together. So not everything's perfect, but we will get there step by step. Rome is not built in a day either.
Yeah, that is so true. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So if there's anything else the Luxo team wants to add, I will let you add it. If not, I'm more than happy to give back time.
Yeah, I can start. I just want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you, hackers, for being curious and what's being built. And it's super nice to answer your question. And like it helps us also, like, because the thing is that we've been dealing with that for some time now, so we cannot see that with a new eye. And some stuff which are like maybe obvious for us, it's not obvious for you. And I remember when I started working with Fabian, I was like, oh my God, what is this and that? And now it's more obvious. So it's super cool. We try to answer as much as we can, but we get a lot of questions, so it's not so easy. But yeah, just a big thanks for your interest and for building stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hugo, also for helping build that for now 2 years plus. One thing I also want to add is it's defining like such a substantial like groundwork that it's also like friendly and user friendly. It takes time, right? And yeah, that's why things sometimes take longer than we want, but we want that the foundation like works and works well. All right.
Yeah, for sure. So just a reminder, there's another one of these Ask Me Anythings happening next week at the same time. So feel free to take the advice that was given today, apply it to your projects, and then come back next week with more questions. You can reach out on the LUKSO Discord if you do have questions in the meantime. And other than that, thank you, Yaman. Thank you, Fabian. Thank you, Hugo, so much for taking this moment out of your day to answer questions from us and the rest of the team. And with that, happy hacking, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.